I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're kicking off the new year right, entering 2015 with a watch brand that has stood the test of time. From the 18th century to the 19th to the 20th, and now the 21st, Breguet is a name that transcends generations. It rings almost like a combination of Babe Ruth, George Washington, and Thomas Edison rolled into one, because that's what Abraham Louis Breguet represented to watchmaking. And this reference right here, the 3320, available in outstanding condition from watchyouwant.com, is a classical dress timepiece that embodies the best of the Breguet style, but in a wristwatch format. Now, in his era, working for French royalty, British generals, Napoleon, yeah, I know, talk about triple dipping, but Breguet built pocket watches. So to translate that style into a modern format, namely the wristwatch, Monsieur Breguet, during the 90s, actually went about identifying the key elements that make a Breguet a Breguet. Now, later purchased by the Swatch Group, it was the refinement of this Breguet style into a wristwatch format that made the company such an attractive target. And this is a reference that dates back to the 90s, when Breguet was beginning to regain its mojo in the modern era. So let's look at some of the quintessential Breguet styling features that are evident here in this 3320. First and foremost, I want to draw your attention to the presence of the Breguet hands at center. Now, again, the iPhone always betrays me, but this time I think I'm getting just enough of the subject matter. These hands are actually fired in a kiln until they're oxidized blue. As the oxidation takes place, first the blue wavelengths are blocked out and the hands become yellow. As the firing continues, the yellow wavelengths are blocked out. That is, the deposit layer on the oxidation on the hands themselves actually becomes half the wavelength of the yellow, and at that point, that's yellow light. At that point, only the blue light is visible, and that's why the hands are called heat-oxidized blue hands. And they are, in the typical Breguet style, sticks with pointers and little loops. When you hear the expression Breguet hands, people are talking about this style. Now, in addition, there's a tremendous amount of engraving on this dial, which I should mention is 18-karat gold. This is yellow gold that's been silvered by a depositing process, and that's one of the characteristics of modern Breguet dress references. There is precious metal content even in the steel watches because of that dial, and it's not just a machine engraving. It's done by hand by a guillocheur on a rose lathe. So it actually features two contrasting guilloche patterns, actually three if you count the circular graining of the hour track and then the minute track at the periphery. But there's a clou de Paris pattern, which is kind of like a diagonal hobnail that traces this outer shaded portion, and then you get into the inner disc, and that's a rose lathe repeating modified concentric circle pattern, almost like little bows turned around, radiating from the cannon pinion at center. Now, Breguet, beyond that, is known for elegance, and hence you have the traditional coined case. This is actually cold rolled into the 18-karat yellow gold. So this is not something that's machine stamped. I'm going to try to get it so that it doesn't reflect oddly. But you can see that there's this bar around the circumference of the case that's shaded differently. That's actually coining of the edge, and that coining is something that's cold rolled. That is the hardest, essentially case shaping technique that can be employed by a case manufacturer. The easier ones would just be to cast it or stamp it. This is the hard way to do it, and the fact that it's then hand finished to make it smooth and even and presentable is emblematic of the Breguet way of doing things, as is the fact that these are soldered on lugs, very secure, with screwed attachments. There are actually screws attaching these lugs on each side, and the screws are much more secure and much more solid than the typical spring bars that are used in luxury watches these days. That's part of the Breguet style. Don't cut corners. It's not as easy for your watchmaker to swap out a strap, but it's also a lot harder for you to lose the strap. Security, substance, fine finish, that's Breguet. And that continues on the crown. You can see the crown is very delicately knurled about its edges. It actually matches the coining of the case flanks very nicely, and it includes a beautifully cabochon cut sapphire embedded in the crown itself. This watch is all about the details, and again, I'm sorry that we're using an iPhone here because it doesn't do justice to the substance of this watch. Up close, this watch is outstanding. The detailing on the case, on the dial, it's every inch the equal of something you would see from Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, a gorgeous piece, and it even has a high horology pedigree. Now, the Breguet caliber 549 inside this watch features a 38 to 42 hour power reserve. It's automatic winding, It's actually based on the Jaeger-LeCoultre caliber 889-2, which means that the inside of this watch is engineered by the watchmaker's watchmaker. JLC is the watchmaker to the gods. Patek Philippe over the years, Vacheron Constantin, Audemars Piguet, Cartier, Breguet, and many others have availed themselves of JLC's watchmaking acumen. And if you wanted to have something approaching a Ferrari engine in your watch back in the classical days, you wanted a JLC engine in your watch. And that's what Breguet did. Before the purchase by the Swatch Group, they were reliant upon JLC to a large extent to power their dress watches. And that's about as good as you can get. If you're going to outsource your movement, get it from the best. Heck, Patek, Vacheron, and Audemars Piguet did. This is a fantastic, durable movement. Watchmakers know it well, universally respected. And so is the Breguet style. Between the fine finish, the high horology pedigree of the movement, and the fact that this is the most traditional dress watch style, 32 millimeters, wears sharp on any wrist. This watch is thin, this watch sits flat, this watch laughs at French cuffs. It'll fit under any dress shirt, long sleeve shirt, any cuff pattern that you have. Whatever format you like to dress, this watch is ready for the occasion. Go black tie, and this watch is ready to go with you. So this is the Breguet 3320, available from watchyouwant.com in outstanding condition. This is the picture of mid-century dress watch elegance with a little bit of 18th and 19th century flair thrown in for good measure. Watches like this caught the eye of Nicholas Hayek, and more than anything else, were the reason why the Swatch Group saw so much potential and such a hidden gem in Breguet when they purchased it in 1999. Watches like this made it happen. Own a piece of history. Own a piece of the vintage Breguet legacy and the modern Breguet legacy in this reference 3320, available in outstanding condition on watchyouwant.com.